For more on the Packers quarterback situation, an interesting clip from Reed. Let's now bring in senior NFL writer Pete Prisco and senior NFL insider Josina Anderson. Guys, you heard LaFleur's comments there. We'll start with that, both on the impending departure of Rodgers and QB1 Jordan Love. Pete, what do you make of the fact that he wants us to kind of temper/lower our expectations for Love?
I mean, what is he going to say? Obviously, you have to temper your expectations. You're replacing Aaron Rodgers, who's a Hall of Famer, and you have no idea what Jordan Love's going to do when he is the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. So I understand where he's coming from, but you also talk to people around the organization. They're excited for Jordan Love, and he showed some good things last year. I think this is one of those opportunities where the relationship between Rodgers and the Packers, it frayed. They got divorced, or they're in the process of getting divorced, and now you get the new person in the relationship, and I think they're excited about Jordan Love. But you do have to temper. Look, he's going to play a lot in the preseason. He has to play a lot. He hasn't played a lot of football, so I understand why you have to just temper it a bit, because he isn't Aaron Rodgers, and that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting is you talked about their excitement of clearly they're excited for Jordan Love, and I think an aspect of that, too, is that I feel like they're just excited for change, period, and excited for 12 to depart, as, you know, whatever that may sound, but obviously it's part of the case. I think what was also interesting is that LaFleur also talked about the game in which he felt like Jordan Love performed well last season. It was against Philly, Week 12. Went back and looked at the stats. I think he was 6 for 9, had a 66% completion. His rating was particularly high that game, and he pointed out that game because he felt like it gave him confidence to play well against Philly. But at the same time, you're right, the underlying theme was to lower the expectations, not just of Jordan Love, but the other young pieces that are around them. So what I feel like essentially is they're setting the table for people to have an adjustment period, not just within the organization, but also the fan base.
Josina, there's a report this AM that says the Packers and the Jets are still kind of haggling over added compensation as sort of pick protection in the deal. What's the latest on that?
Well, one of the Packers officials yesterday said that it didn't necessarily mean that they had to give up a first, which I thought was interesting because a lot of the talk in New York, obviously, you know, I live in that market, has been whether this has been over a first and if that's been a haggle point. But at the same time, just even me amongst the local media throng that covers the team, my particular feeling is that the Jets should just go ahead and do what needs to be done just to get over the hump, because I feel like it's way more important to just go ahead and be in alignment and get that good vibes going. Although it doesn't necessarily mean, Pete, that Aaron Rodgers is going to be in the building right away, but just the knowledge of having that done, usurping that big brother title from the Giants, getting those good vibes going is every day, Pete, that you don't have that. So why not capitalize off that?
Yeah, I get it. They don't want to give up pick number 13 this year either. That's one of the haggling points. And when you mention conditions, and I understand why they would want conditions on the picks, what if you trade for him and you give up the picks and he decides I'm only going to play 1 year? So I think the condition on some of those picks will be if he plays 2 or 3 years. I think that's what they're going to try and do is protect themselves. Because let's be honest about it. A year from now, they might be going through the same thing. Is he? Will he? Will he go dark? Where's he going to go? Is he going to go into a cave? They have no idea. So they want a little bit more of a commitment from Aaron Rodgers.
And to that point, though, and this is the conversation that I've had with the Jets behind the scenes, if you have the concern that you don't even know if he's going to play beyond a year or two, it's just really interesting why this conversation, just from the beginning, hasn't been centered more around Lamar, just from the standpoint of the fact that you're going to have way more years. And from the talk behind the scenes, you know, I haven't heard that Lamar would be opposed to playing for. And obviously that's not going to happen, so I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much of a moot point. But I just still think it's interesting because you're really doing all of this effort for something that may last you just a year or two.
It's crazy.
Well, and stranger things have happened, so who knows? Josina, you say that it may not happen, but I mean, who knows? This is the NFL. Yesterday, we had a story that Brock Purdy is in the running to be QB1 for the 49ers. But head coach Kyle Shanahan now says Purdy could be out 6 to 8 months as he heals up. But what type of impact could this have on that quarterback competition with Trey Lance and Sam Darnold, Pete?
Well, you got to know, Trey Lance is going to get all the work. I mean, that's what it's going to be. You're not around to get the work, and that always matters to the head coaches. And, you know, there's a big belief that whoever plays quarterback for the 49ers, it's a system guy. You go in, you run Kyle Shanahan's system, you have all those playmakers, not that hard. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I say it all the time of Brock Purdy. Look, there's a lot to like about Brock Purdy. but he's only played 9 games. 9.
He played
9
really
games.
well, Pete, in those
He
9
played
games.
really well, but he 9 games, and he played 5 of those games against really bad defenses if you go back and look at the numbers. So, look, I like Brock Purdy. I'm excited about it. I think it's a good thing. But he is coming off a major injury to his arm. That's a major surgery, 6 to 8 months before he can get back throwing again properly. That's a big concern. So I think Trey Lance is going to get a lot of work. Was he good last year? No. But maybe another year removed, and he's a better player than he was a year ago.
So let me ask you this. If Brock Purdy were healthy,
He'd be the quarterback.
but if he were healthy and you had the potential of Trey, would you still name Brock your
I'd make him go to competition and compete.
No, but I mean, like, who would you feel?
Brock Purdy would get the first snaps, but I would make him compete. The guy who has the best preseason is the one who starts.
And I think what's interesting, too, about this is that if Brock Purdy were healthy, I think John Lynch would even be more open to conversations about people potentially trying to pick off their quarterback stable because, and I know we're going to get into this, they have a very attractive quarterback stable. And if you're a team like the Baltimore Ravens and you're thinking about potential trade partners, I'm not trying to do any type of deal without a team that has some sort of quarterback that I'm going to also be excited about. Forget the picks. I'm more from the less need camp. I need people who perform for me today. I'm not talking about next year and the year after that and whatever, because we don't have that kind of time in the league right now. That's just how I feel.
One thing I have heard about Brock Purdy, boy, he gets in that huddle and he owns it. And that says a lot about him personally for being a guy who was Mr. Irrelevant to owning a huddle of the 49ers. That tells you a lot about Brock Purdy.
Well, and that's something that, you love to see, too. We're not calling him Mr. Irrelevant anymore. We're calling him Brock Purdy and referring to his place as the potential QB1 for the 49ers.
9 games, Jeremy, 9 games.
I know,
Let's slow
Pete.
the roll a little bit, okay?
Okay.
He's lowering the roof.
Speaking of, temper our expectations, right? That's what we need to do. The Washington Commanders have Sam Howell penciled in as their QB1 for the 2023 season. But head coach Ron Rivera says, I'm confident in Howell, but they're also not ruling out drafting a quarterback. They have the 16th pick. Could they be a team maybe looking to trade up, Josina?
Well, he definitely said that they're considering all possibilities, and even though they have acquired Jacoby Brissett, I think, in a 1-year, $8 million deal, and they have Sam Howell, that Ron Rivera underlined that they would not keep their eye off potentially drafting a quarterback with that pick. I just think, Pete, that the situation is very interesting because when you think about the Washington fan base and how thirsty they've been just for progress, good production, or what have you, and this is no slight against Sam Howell. By the way, I'm a Tar Heel. I would never be slighting Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett, who just came from Cleveland, and everyone loves Jacoby Brissett, and you have the tremendous respect for him, particularly in what he did without Deshaun Watson being there at the beginning of the season. But at the end of the day, we're talking about franchise quarterback quality, and even if quarterback costs less and you're able to add more around, or just like what Ron Rivera said today, not have to get rid of players as a result of a quarterback like a Lamar having a high number. But at some point, the goal is for that quarterback to be a franchise quarterback, and then that franchise quarterback is going to command money. So are we not essentially just pushing the problem down the road?
Well, here's a problem with Washington. The sale of the team is an issue. So what kind of decisions are you making, who you making them for? So I think that's into play here. I do know that they really like Sam Howell a lot. And I will be astounded if Sam Howell's not the starting quarterback on opening day. And you go through the season, you find out who he is. There were a lot of people who thought Sam Howell should have been a first-round pick at one point. He tailed off a little bit the second year, as you know, from a North Carolina perspective. One was good, and he kind of dropped down a little bit. But he has the ability, I think, to be a starting quarterback in this league. So I play on with him, and they have a lot of talent around him on that team. That team's loaded with talent, by the way. If they get any sort of good quarterback play from Sam Howell, they have a chance to be a playoff team, and maybe more. By the way, the NFC's not very good. It just isn't a good conference right now. So Sam Howell plays well. Watch out for Washington.
Well, I just want to say this, though, but I'm all about known commodities, right? So we're talking about having to figure out, Sam, what about what we already know? And you make a good point.
For who?
I'm talking about
Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, like a Sam versus a Lamar. But you make a good point because you just said this was excellent. You said it's the sale. That's part of the unknown. But anybody who's coming in, if you just make a $6 billion bid like Josh Harris and the Mitchell Rails Group did today, you're not coming here unresearched. And even if you did research, everyone knows that building around a team starts with the quarter. You already know this before and after the sale.
I get it.
But
okay, on the surface, if you're coming in and you're buying this team and you're looking at Lamar Jackson, you're going to pay him $200 million in guaranteed money, right? That's what he wants. He wants $200 million, maybe even more than that, more than Deshaun Watson, guaranteed money. You're going to be paying for a guy who hadn't finished the last 2 seasons, by the way. Let's not forget about that. He's a small quarterback. He hasn't improved since his MVP season all that much. So you look at it from that standpoint, you're not going to do that. You're going to play with your guy and see how it plays out. Then you go into the draft. If things struggle, you go get a guy next year.
Well, this is why you should be GM.
I know.
But then there should be a position above GM, and then I get to overrule you.
You can't be the team president, Josina.
Maybe.
I'm the boss. I'm the boss.
All right,
here.
I love it. I love it.
You can't be the team president if I'm the GM.
As long as there's free steaks and lobster,
There you go.
I'll work for you. Okay.
Yeah, Pete's the boss. Senior NFL writer Pete Prisco, senior NFL insider Josina Anderson joining us from the NFL owners meetings in Phoenix. Thank you very much, guys. For more NFL analysis and discussion, be sure you're listening to the Pick Six podcast. The latest episode dropping Monday. Discussion about how Lamar Jackson's trade request could impact the NFL draft and who made the biggest splashes at their pro days. You can download and follow the Pick Six podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.